Hello everyone, welcome to this video on the Matt's channel. I am your host, who's Matt, and I will be giving you my predictions for the upcoming AFC World Cup qualifier games. Let's get right into it. So Group A, we've got Iran, South Korea looking very strong, probably going to be the automatic qualifiers. And I even made a claim that these two will both go unbeaten. Not that these other two teams below them are bad, but I just think they're a class above. Also, there's some big games for these sides, and it's going to be, and I will explain why soon. But let's get to the first game of this group on match day 7. Lebanon versus South Korea. Now, Lebanon, I thought, probably finish bottom of the group, but they've actually put up some good fights and were third at one point until they lost at home to the United Arab Emirates. I don't think they're going to get to that third place. But stranger things have happened, and they're up against the South Korea team that has lost Son and one of their other best players. But South Korea don't let much in at the back, especially against other Asian teams. I think for whatever pros that Lebanon have, I think South Korea will be too good for them. I'm saying the score will be Lebanon 2. Oh no, that's not right. Lebanon 2, Lebanon 0, South Korea 2. I think South Korea are in a good enough position where they should be getting a fair win against them. And up next, we go, and what that means for the table for South Korea is they win, they're guaranteed a top 3 place. Lebanon, who are in 4th place, won't be able to catch them. However, South Korea will only be guaranteed to eat 3rd place or better and won't be guaranteed automatic qualification unless the UAE slip up in their next game. So let's go on to the next game. We've got Iran versus Iraq. Iran, a win guarantees them qualification, and they've been in very good form recently. Won all but one game, which was a draw against South Korea, who are in themselves a good team. Against an Iraq side, who I think have got worse, but they could. But I'm still not writing them off in terms of their chances to get that 3rd place. Overall, Iraq have some good players, but I think Iran will be too strong. I'm going to say Iran 3, Iraq 0, and that win will guarantee Iran a place at the World Cup. And against a neighboring country, that's going to feel special. Sweet way to do it. And now we go to the UAE versus Syria. Now, I think that the United Arab Emirates are overrated. They've got some good players in them. Their star player, Ali Mahmoud, is missing. They're against the Syria side, which I maybe overestimated, but they had a very good Arab Cup. Played a brilliant second half against the UAE, which they did end up losing. Beat Tunisia, and yes, they lost to Mauritania. All 3 of these games being in the Arab Cup. they were in a position where they had to score, and then eventually it just didn't work out for them in the end. So I think this game will be fairly competitive. Syria on their day can be very, very good. I'm going with UAE 1, Syria 1. I think it'll be fairly balanced, and Syria not quite have enough to get the win. So now let's go to Group B, where we've got the first match day of this international break. China will be away to Japan. Japan, a team I had topping the group, but that poor start hasn't really helped them, and therefore they've been second. And the China team, they're a big underdog in terms of could they, but it seems a bit too far-fetched. They've got a new manager who knows these players well. It knows the squad well, given that they're from the Chinese Super League. I don't think China will play bad against Japan. Japan probably not quite as good as they were in 2018 or 19. I think it'll be one of them where it's 2-0 or 3-0, and maybe a penalty or a free kick decides what the score is. I don't think China will play bad, but I am going to go for a win for Japan, and I am going to say Japan 3, China 0. I think being at home might help them out. And next we look at the next game, Australia versus Vietnam. And I think it's going to be Vietnam will probably give a good account of themselves, but just kind of overall there, going to Australia is not easy, especially if you're an underdog. I think Australia should be winning this, and I think they'll have enough to get a 3-1 victory. So I am saying Australia 3, Vietnam 1. And now let's go to the Middle East, where we see Saudi Arabia play Oman. And Hervé Renard's has got Saudi Arabia playing very well. And so well, they've been topping the group. It's an Oman team that started excellently, but they've been slacking recently, and they're falling behind in their race to either get to the top 2, which looks a bit of a bridge too far, or getting into the playoffs. So I'll tell you what, I think they'll do all right in this game, but I think Saudi Arabia should be too good, especially playing in Jeddah. I am going to say it'll be Saudi Arabia 2, Oman 0. And now let's go back to Group A, where we go to the first game, and that is Lebanon versus Iraq. And I think it's a game that should be pretty close, relatively about the same level. Iraq, in theory, should be better, but Lebanon have been playing the better stuff. I think it'll be a relatively even game. I'll say it will end in a draw. And I am going to say it will be Lebanon 1, Iraq 1. I don't see a lot separating these teams. And yeah, I'm going to go with a draw. Up next, we go to Who? Hold on. We've got Iran versus UAE. So, if what happened with the draw last time, then top two would have been locked in. Iran qualified, and the UAE draw would mean that South Korea also qualify. So from there forth, it's looking like a four-way shootout for that third place spot. And you never know, Iran might have not bad complacency, but they won't be as much on their game, seeing as their objectives achieved. Although having said that, they'll still try and get that first place spot. Against the UAE team without Mahmoud, you imagine they'll probably tighten up a bit more in the defense. I think Iran should be winning this, though. They look too good overall. But I don't expect the United Arab Emirates to get battered. I am saying it will be Iran 2, United Arab Emirates 0. So next we go to Syria versus South Korea. I think it should be a good game. The fact South Korea have played the majority of their home games in South Korea has probably helped them out a bit. But having said that, I still do think they can have an unbeaten run ahead of the in this qualifying group. And it is the Syria side who are good for this level. They could even do some bits. I think it'll be a fairly competitive game. They've both got their strengths in attack and defense. And for South Korea going away to Syria, I am going to say it'll be another draw, and I'm going to say Syria 1, South Korea 1. So now we go to Group B. So we start with Vietnam versus China. And now Vietnam, I think this is going to be the best chance to get a win, especially being at home. So Vietnam, I'd say, when I look back on their group in the round before, it was a competitive group, especially the way you saw the ending. Apart from Indonesia, who just got a point, all the teams there fought it out, and they were very even. Malaysia and Thailand were close behind the top two, and Vietnam pipped the UAE to get to this round. UAE did eventually qualify through being one of the best second place teams, but the point is, it was no fluke that Vietnam got here. But it's just that the group they're in is just too strong, and perhaps they're here too soon. Against the China team, who are doing all right in this group, but it's not really enough. You're not really going to expect them to do much damage. I think this is the best chance Vietnam have of getting this win, and they have done it against UAE, who I think are probably a bit better than Vietnam, better than China. I think they'll get their win. I'll say Vietnam. It's a bit slow loading. I'll say Vietnam 2, China 1. Up next, we go to Japan, where they face Saudi Arabia. Now, if Japan were to top this group, then you would imagine that this game is the one they've got to win. And Saudi Arabia, if they do win this, then qualification looks fairly set in stone, although they might have to wait the next break before it can be confirmed. They've been doing well. They were the better team from what I saw against Japan. And also, I would say Japan have been, improving since the poor start. And being at home, I think ink will help as well. I think Japan will just have enough. I'm going to say it'll be Japan to win, and I'm going to say Japan 2, Saudi Arabia 1. And finally, we go to Oman versus Australia. This will be a big one. For Oman, it's going to be for them to push themselves into that top 3 places. For Australia, it's going to be for trying to get into that top 2, the automatic places. And Oman have clearly shown that they can and pull out big results. We saw it against Japan. Will they here? Well, being at home helps, and the amount of traveling that Australia will have to do. I think it's going to be a draw, and I'm going to say it will be Oman 1, Australia 1. So what do these results mean for the table? Well, Vietnam remain bottom with 3 points. China also remain setting where they are of just 5 points. Oman make a bit of a push to that top 3 place, although when you consider Australia's predictions for the Australia games, they'll be further. Australia, well, the table just pretty much stays as it is, and Saudi Arabia, I think, will only be a victory away from being able to qualify, depending on other results. And looking back at this game, well, as I predicted earlier, Iran and South Korea to qualify. But interestingly, what about here? Well, I think Syria remain bottom with 4 points. Iraq, 5 points, but with a worse goal difference. Lebanon up to 6, and United Arab Emirates 7. So again, no real change here, but I expect much more of a mix come in the next games, which will be here, especially when you consider that South Korea are playing Iran, so they've got this. They have no dictatorship on what happens, but their predictions for another day, and I've made mine. What do you think? Let me know your predictions, and the road to 2022 still continuing.